Hey guys, here's a 4-hour portrait painting of Ygritte from Game of Thrones. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be posting videos quite regularly, all with commentary. Today I'm mainly going to focus on my thoughts and less about the process of the painting. I've done a few paintings like this already, and the process doesn't really change. It's just staying zoomed out, getting the big shapes, and then zooming in and refining the shapes. What I mainly wanted to talk about is the proper method or the proper way to do studies. If you're going to do studies like this, you're not going to retain as much information than if you focused on something very small. For example, just the hair or the basic shapes or the nose or the eye. Focused on something small that you can do quickly and still have time through the day to apply what you've learned, because that's really where you see how much information you've actually retained. When you do long drawn out studies like this, it's more for showing and less about learning. The studies where you learn the most are usually quite messy, quite ugly, sometimes very unfinished, but the focus there isn't a pretty picture. The focus is to figure out a very specific thing. And with something like this, you're focusing on everything. You're doing the face, you're doing the hair, you're doing the background. You're trying to get it as accurate as possible. You're doing the textures and so on and so forth. And you will retain some information, but a lot less than if you broke it down into its smaller parts, studied them separately, or did more studies of those separate parts. So say this takes like 4 hours. My main issue was the eyes, or my main issue was the nose or the hair or something like that. I would instead take those 4 hours, do multiple studies of hair. So getting a few images with good lighting or similar lighting of hair, try to replicate it from the image. Each time I finish with one photo, I would try recreate it from my imagination. Really see what I'm actually learning, what I'm retaining, what I'm missing out, or what's falling through the cracks when I'm studying. So when I move to the next study, I have a more clear idea of where I'm going wrong, what I need to focus on for that study. This way, you're doing multiple small studies of the same subject, each time building off the other one, instead of just doing a 4-hour portrait study like this. See, so it's a better use of your time. And you're learning more since you're applying it. You're applying it multiple times. You'll retain it longer, the information, and you'll be able to use it in your own work much more effectively than if you did a face study like this and you did the whole thing. You're only going to remember a very small, minute amount of it, so when it comes to actually applying it in your work, it won't be as effective. Like, granted, you're still going to learn from these kinds of studies. You're still going to learn a lot of things, but mostly what you'll be training when you're doing these kinds of studies is your eye for proportion. You'll be getting into the habit of finishing images quickly, finishing an image in one setting. Granted, all the information is there, so you're mainly just recreating what you see next to you, but it is good practice for actually finishing something if you haven't ever done that before. But when it starts getting to the point where you want to not have to rely on reference so much, or you want to be able to create convincing images from your imagination, The only real way to get better at that is to, one, do a lot of work from imagination so you can see from there what you don't understand, and then two, putting some time aside where you specifically tackle those issues. And then as you keep doing more imagination work or you keep doing more client work, you'll start to improve. You just keep going and you keep finding things you're having issues with, doing studies on the side, slowly but surely improving. Also, another great thing about focusing on very simple, like breaking it down to a very simple and easy to digest part, you can do more in one setting. You really start to learn when you do it a few times in a row, adding imagination. Like I said before with the hair example, if you tackle all your studies like that and manage to do in every setting, you manage to do the study which you're having trouble with, and then recreate it from your imagination, and then do that same study or another study of that same topic, say for example again the hair, you're going to truly grasp what it is you're having issues with, find ways to fix or better understand what you're doing. There is really a balance. You never want to, what you want is you want to be able to start an image from your imagination and be able to get down the pose, the composition, even the lighting and the color scheme. If you can get all that down from your imagination, from there work on issues in the painting. If you have issue with the imagination or something like that, one, it's going to really speed up your process because you're working from imagination, so you don't have to look for the perfect reference or whatever. Two, the work is going to be a lot more original because it is coming from your imagination. Even if you have something in mind or something you saw, something like that, you're never really going to create it perfectly from whatever you're thinking about or whatever. And yeah, it is really important to have both, to inform your work with reference and stuff like that, but to also be able to use your imagination and push an image as far as it can go. In the image I'm painting, everything's quite straightforward, just trying to replicate what I see on the side. Mainly for this piece, I mainly just used the flat round the whole time, basically. And for the blending, I just used the soft round. So there's no real secret or anything like that. No real special method. I use a bit of the smudge tool here and there, but very sparingly. For my upcoming videos, I'll be posting the final paintings that I did for client work that I recorded a while back. I feel if I leave it any longer, they'll be too dated and I'm not going to really want to post them. So I won't be having any more study videos for a little while until I finish editing all of that. But after that, I'll start doing studies where it shows how you should be studying, where I will do a study and then recreate it from my imagination, and then do another study and then recreate it from my imagination, and so on and so forth until my allotted time is up. And that way you can really see how I do normal studies, like not these show studies. And I feel that would really help beginners more than them seeing me just recreate a portrait like I'm doing now. And as I said before, you will learn from doing studies like this, but you'll learn a lot more from doing studies where you're directly applying it straight after, because you can really see where you're going wrong and you can there and then build upon it with the next study. That's why it's very good to keep the study small and short. You can only focus for so long, and be completely focused in what you're doing. So breaking it into smaller studies where you're focusing on one thing, you're going to learn a whole lot more than doing a full study like this for, say, it was 4 hours, doing a full study like this for 4 hours, and at the end of it, not learning as much as you could have. So yeah, look forward to seeing the new studies after I finish posting the final illustration videos, which will be a while because I'll be breaking them down in small pieces so I can edit and put audio over the top. So it's going to be quite a while, quite a few weeks. But I'm hoping, since I'll have to do that, that I can do more beneficial studies, and at the same time, because I'm only having to edit stuff I've already recorded, it can be a little more frequent than how I'm going now. Because sometimes it is hard to do a video and then edit it, and then do the audio, then edit it, and then post it. So these videos end up taking a lot of time. Most of the time, they take up a lot of time. Just before I actually did the editing, I did the audio for this whole video, and then I realized that my mic wasn't working. This is the second time I've done that. I feel partly why I've done so many of these kinds of studies is, one, so I can learn a marginal amount, but mainly because these get a better response from the community when you post them. So if you post like scribbles or something like that, you might have learned quite a lot from the scribbles you drew, but someone else seeing it, they just see scribbles most of the time. And if you're doing client work all the time and you're not getting to post as often, yeah, that sometimes I resort to these kinds of studies, even though I know that I would probably learn a lot more if I focused on one thing. So it is a bit of a balance, and there are better ways, I would say, of doing stuff like that. Like, instead of doing this, I could do imagination stuff. Also, a very important thing is consistency. To do a study every day, to be learning every day, even if you only have an hour or something like that, to do a small study and learn something. It's very easy to get a lot of client work and stuff like that and then stop studying for a long period of time. In my case, I feel that when I took those breaks because of client work and stuff like that, when I started studying again, I felt that I went back a few steps. That's not what you want to do. You're investing so much time into studying and into getting better. You want to really get the most out of the time you put in. So it's really important to do it as frequently as you can and to be consistent. I would say you would learn a lot more from doing an hour a day than doing 7 hours 1 day of the week, because you'd learn more in that 1 hour that is spaced out than you would if you did 7 hours. You would learn probably a lot in the first 1 hour, 2 hours, depending on how you took your breaks and stuff like that, and the rest of it you wouldn't be getting as much out of it as you would if you just spaced it out. So yeah, consistency and perseverance. To just keep going and keep struggling and keep working on what you're having difficulties with. And you can really tell the things you need to study when you start doing stuff without reference, when you start creating like a character without any reference. You'll quickly see that, oh, you're lacking in anatomy, or you can't draw faces, or you're having trouble with the neck area, or the shoulder area, or the torso. You'll very quickly pick out the problems you're having. That's the best time to single out one of those issues and then take some time out, study them. In that way that you focused on one certain thing, and you can do a quick study, you'll retain a lot more information. Because the study is smaller, you can do a few in a short amount of time, and you'd learn a lot more than doing just one study. If you're applying it more often, you're going to retain a lot more information. For example, so you have trouble with doing noses or something like that. So you do a few studies of noses, Each time you paint a nose, you recreate it from your imagination. And then the next time when you're painting the next nose, you'll be more aware of what you got wrong when you recreated the previous one from imagination. So you'll be more focused on that when you study the next nose. After say like 10 noses, after each nose, you'll focus more and more on the smaller issues you're having. That way it'll really cement in your mind because you've applied it 10 times by that point, and then you go back to whatever you were painting, imagination or whatever like that. Then you apply it again. That way the fundamentals of it, or you're really understanding what you're studying much more than if you did just a portrait study like this where you're doing everything. It's just too much to study. I know sometimes the audios are a bit sporadic. I think for future videos I'll be writing down some notes or something just to keep on track and make sure I'm not repeating myself too much. It's difficult to remember if I repeated myself, if I already did all this audio and then I'm just trying to remember what I haven't said from the audio that didn't work previously. So, yeah. But anyway, look forward to seeing the new videos where I do the smaller studies and then do the imagination work there and then. As you can see what I'm getting wrong and stuff and how I try to break it down and understand the issues I'm having. I feel those would really help people a lot more than just seeing me recreate a portrait. Portraits or like doing fully finished photo studies like this do help in a lot of aspects. They do help with certain things. They help develop your eye so you can tell proportions and placement of objects. Also, they help with your ability to pick the right colors and choose the right values. I'd like to thank everyone for watching the video. I'll have another one up soon.